You can survive a misaligned role for a long time. High-achieving corporate women are exceptionally good at survival. You adapt, you perform, you deliver results, even when something internally feels off. That is why many high-performing women remain in misaligned roles for too long that they should. Not because they lack awareness, but because they possess endurance. And endurance can be dangerous when it is applied to the wrong situation. Let's start with something important. High-achieving corporate women do not burn out because they are weak. They burn out because they are misaligned. And misalignment rarely destroys performance immediately. It erodes something else first: your internal alignment, your sense of identity, your emotional clarity, your connection to meaning. And this erosion is subtle, which is why so many women stay longer than their internal evolution allows. Externally, everything looks stable. You still perform well. Your reputation remains intact. Your responsibilities continue. But internally, something begins to shift. You start noticing small signals. A meeting that once energized you now drains you. A responsibility you once welcomed now feels heavy. A decision you once made confidently now feels conflicted. These signals are not dramatic, but they are diagnostic. And the longer they are ignored, the more expensive they become. Because staying in the wrong role too long carries hidden costs. Costs that are rarely discussed in professional environments. Today, I want to unpack 5 of those hidden costs, not to create panic, but to create awareness. Because awareness allows you to move strategically, not impulsively. Let us start with the first hidden cost: identity erosion. When your role requires you to consistently operate in ways that contradict who you are becoming, you begin suppressing parts of yourself, your instincts, your values, your natural leadership style. At first, it feels like adaptation. You tell yourself, this is just part of professional growth. But over time, adaptation becomes suppression. You stop speaking certain truths. You stop expressing certain ideas. You stop honoring certain internal signals. Not because you no longer believe in them, but because the environment does not reward them. That suppression slowly disconnects you from your authentic identity. And identity erosion is one of the most exhausting experiences that a high-achieving woman can endure, because you are still performing, but you are no longer fully present within the performance. The second hidden cost is emotional fatigue. Now, this is different from workload fatigue. Workload fatigue comes from doing too much. Emotional fatigue comes from being someone you are not. It is the fatigue of self-monitoring, self-editing, constantly managing how you show up. When identity and environment align, leadership feels natural. When they do not, leadership feels performative, and performance requires energy. Imagine acting in a role every day that does not reflect your authentic personality. You could do it, especially if you are talented, but eventually it would exhaust you. That is what misalignment does. It turns leadership into performance, and performance fatigue accumulates quietly. The third hidden cost is installed evolution. Growth requires alignment with your next level of identity. But when you remain inside a structure that rewards an outdated version of yourself, your evolution slows. You begin maintaining success instead of expanding into it. You become excellent at preserving the current structure, but you stop building the future version of your professional life. And for high achieving women, stagnation is deeply frustrating because your internal capacity continues to grow, your insights deepen, your leadership maturity expands, but your environment may still be rewarding the previous version of you. And when growth is blocked too long, it begins to feel like burnout. But the root is misalignment. The fourth hidden cost is strategic confusion. When you stay too long in a misaligned role, you begin losing clarity about what you truly want. You become accustomed to functioning within constraints that do not reflect your real priorities. And over time, you begin forgetting what alignment even feels. Your decision making becomes reactive instead of intentional. You start asking questions like, maybe this is just how work is. Maybe this is the price of success. Maybe everyone feels this way. Those questions are understandable, but they often signal that your internal compass has been overridden for too long. Strategic clarity requires emotional honesty, and misalignment disrupts that honesty. The fifth hidden cost is the most serious. Delayed realignment increases transition risks. Many women stay in misaligned roles for years because they want stability. But the longer misalignment persists, the more drastic the eventual transition often becomes. Instead of making thoughtful adjustments early, you reach a breaking point later. Suddenly, the exhaustion becomes unbearable. Suddenly, the resentment becomes visible. Suddenly, the desire to live becomes urgent. And urgency rarely produces strategic decisions. It produces emotional exits. That is the irony. The attempt to maintain stability eventually creates instability because the misalignment was ignored for too long. Now, let me be clear. This conversation is not encouraging impulsive change. Strategic women do not abandon responsibility. They assess, they diagnose, they move deliberately, but they do not ignore internal data indefinitely because the internal signals are not random. They are feedback. Your emotional fatigue, your quiet questioning, your subtle detachment, these are not weaknesses. They are information. Information about the relationship between your identity and your professional structure. And information is valuable when interpreted correctly. Let me offer a metaphor. Imagine driving with slightly misaligned wheels. At first, the car still moves normally, but over time, the tires wear unevenly. The steering becomes harder. Fuel efficiency drops. Nothing appears dramatically broken, but the cost accumulates slowly. Misalignment in your career functions the same way. The damage is gradual. The signals are subtle, but the cost compounds. And eventually, the system requires correction. Not because you failed, but because growth changed the alignment. This is why my work begins with identity, not with resumes, not with job searches. Identity first. Because until you understand who you are becoming, every professional decision becomes guesswork. Through the RTS method, realign, transition, sustain, we move in sequence. Realign. This is where you diagnose identity performance misalignment. You examine the friction between your evolving identity and your current structure. You identify what still fits and what no longer does. Then comes transition. This phase is strategic. It protects your income, your reputation, your professional narrative, because realignment should strengthen your credibility, not damage it. And finally, sustain. This phase ensures that your next chapter remains aligned, so that success no longer requires self-suppression. Because success that costs your identity is not sustainable success. Let's recap the hidden costs of staying too long in the wrong role: identity erosion, emotional fatigue, stalled evolution, strategic confusion, and increased transition risk. None of these appear overnight. They accumulate slowly, which is why high achieving women often overlook them. But once you recognize them, you can respond intelligently, not with panic, with clarity. If you are watching this and recognizing some of these patterns, it does not mean your career is broken. It means you are evolving. And evolution always requires recalibration. The goal is not to abandon your success. The goal is to align it with who you are becoming. Because sustainable success is not built through endurance alone. It is built through alignment. And alignment allows you to lead, grow, and succeed without losing yourself in the process. In the next phase of this series, we will begin exploring what realignment actually looks like, not theoretically, strategically, because clarity always comes before movement. And movement, when aligned, becomes information. And movement, when aligned, becomes transformation. I will see you on the next one.